15, 5/4 or 1 1/4. Josh?
What was the?
Number 8 is 4 units squared. Bam. Elijah said 2. As only Elijah can say 2. Last year, Sheldon used 50 feet of fencing to enclose a garden with an area of 150 feet squared. This year, Sheldon plans to use 100 feet of fencing to enclose a garden in a similar shape. What would be the area of the garden? 50 feet of fencing to enclose a rectangular garden. So the gist is that, first of all, you draw your little, let's look at last year. Let's look at last year, thank you. Don't worry. Last year, Sheldon used 50 feet, so the perimeter was 50 feet, yes? And the area was 150 feet squared. What combination would get you that? Anybody? Thoughts on how to do that? Well, how would you figure that out? You've got a bunch of, you probably only got one that works. Jaden?
10 and 15.
10 and 15 work? Was that just by trial and error? I mean, did you, huh?
I guess
Nobody do it by any other way besides trial and error? I think that's how the book wants us to do trial and error. I'm not 100% sure. What was in lesson 91? You don't know because you don't have lessons that go back to 91, do you? I'm trying to think what it would be. I'm gonna look at lesson 91 just to see what we do there. Do you have somewhere out of the way?
I'm finding dimensions, so there's also the perimeter of the
Did we not need to know this? Am I barking up the wrong tree? This year, Sheldon plans to use 100 feet of fencing in close garden of the similar, but it has to be a similar shape. Oh, yeah, maybe that's the way we do it. Here's the deal. Yeah, that would be it right there. You know you are going from 50 to 100, which is what scale factor? So write that down because that would be, I'll bet that's what lesson 91 is about. So in your notes that you're keeping for tomorrow, number 1, figure out the scale factor. What is the scale factor? We don't need to know any of this gobbledygook. You know the scale factor, 50 times 2 is 100. The scale factor from the smaller to the bigger is 2. Correct? Go from 50 to 100 is times 2. Well, if that's the case, how will their areas compare? And there is where you tell yourself, area is always the scale factor squared. So if my scale factor was 2, I square 2, I get 4. The new area will be 4 times bigger than the original area. So 4 times that 150 will give you that 600. Which, by the way, with Jaden's little way here, you could still do it like this, but this would be kind of complicated. You know that it was doubled, so you double this. This would be 20, and this would be 30. Because it has to be similar. They said they were similar, and 30 times 30 would give you the 600. But just do, write a note to yourself, find the scale factor. They're probably going to ask you area again. You know, if the scale factor had been 3 times bigger, you would square 3, and the new area would be 9 times bigger. You'd have to multiply by 9. Thank you, Isabel, for pointing me in the right direction. I told you I got a C in algebra. Sometimes I do things the hard way. Riley Harrington, number 5. By the way, say hi to Jason, because he'll probably watch this. Hi, Jason.
Hi, Jason.
Hope you feel better. Find the volume of the cone in question number 4. But now I gotta go find 4. I'm finding volume of the cone in 4. The cone in 4 has a diameter of 6 and a height of 4. Right? So here we go. Diameter 6, height of 4. Diameter 6, height of 4. Wait, what did I just do? Diameter 6, height of 4. So you drew your cone. Height was 4. Diameter was 6 inches. Did I get that right? You tell me if I'm doing something wrong. Okay. So, volume of a cone is the same thing as the volume of a cylinder, except it comes to a point, so you do what to it? Divide it by 3. So, volume of a cone is area of the base, which is pi times radius times its height, and you're going to divide that all by 3. Maybe something you want to jot in your notes, that formula. The nice thing they said, leave in terms of pi, so you don't have to work with 3.14, you just leave the little pi symbol and do what you can with it. So I end up with this, filling in the blanks. Volume equals pi, I can leave Mr. Pi there. The radius, if the diameter is 6, the radius is 3. So pi times 3 times 3 times the height, which is 4. All over 3. And the beauty of that is you can just do what, Grace? Yeah, you got a 3 on top and a 3 on the bottom, so cross them off. 3 times 4 is 12. Just leave Mr. Pi there. Volume equals 12 pi, whatever it was, inches cubed. Love it to death. Kate.
Number 4.
Oh, what was that, surface area?
No, we're not doing it right.
Oh, slant height. What is the slant height, which means this? You want to know what, so let's go color. You want to know what, from point, that's your slant height from there to there. Anytime you're doing slant height of something, you're probably going to think Pythagoreans are making a right triangle. So you start here at the apex, the point above, go straight down so you get a right angle with the base. Come across here, here's your triangle that you use. And you already know most of the dimensions of that. Kate, it is,
4.
the height is 4. This is the same as the radius, which is 3. And hopefully that is a Pythagorean triple. Is there a 3, 4? Yeah, it has to be 5 inches. You should color that in. Jason, is that what you got for an answer? You can make this interactive. Jenna Dervis, I hope I can do it. That's the one with the ruler? I gotta go to your number 20 and not 6th grade. I'll rewrite it over here, 0.2 minus 0.02 all over 0.2 times 0.02. First things first, a fraction line is a grouping symbol. Because there's subtraction up here, you cannot cross cancel these. You could only do that if it's multiplication and they're factors. Since there's a subtraction thing here, you really need to do this first, and then do this, and then see if they divide out. What is 0.2 minus 0.02? Looks like 0.18 to me. Yes? 0.18. On the bottom, what is 0.2 times 0.02? Well, you get 4 with how many decimal places? 3. So you get 0.004. I don't think I'd bother crossing and canceling, even though you could. I would just probably do it as a division problem, just for all intents and purposes, divide this into that. Don't forget your 6th or 5th grade math, move the decimal, so it's out here. Move this the same place, it's the same as 4 into 180. And that ends up being 4, 16, 20, 45. Now, how many people got that wrong? 3 people get that wrong? Luke, what'd you do?
On the bottom, I did 0.2 times 0.2.
So you just wrote this down incorrectly?
Yeah.
So, more. Aubrey Altenberg.
Number 7.
Number 7. Oh, yeah. This one shouldn't be that difficult for you. Find the first 4 terms of the sequence. Remember, in these recursive formulas or whatever this thing is, n just means the number of the term. So they want the first 4 terms. So the first term, you put number 1 in for the letter n. The second term, you put 2 in for n. You're going to see a pattern there. But if you put 1 in for n, 2 times n minus 1. What is 1 minus 1? 0. What is 2 times 0? 0. Your first term is 0. Then you would put 2 in the second. See here, I'll write it up here. Here's your first term. The second term, you would put 2 in for n. So you put 2 times 2 minus 1. And 2 minus 1 is 1. So 2 times 1 is 2. For the third term, you put 3 in for n. So it would look like 2 times 3 minus 1. And 3 minus 1 is 2, so you get 4. And you'll see the pattern, 6 would be there. N is the number of the term. Zoinks, as my friend Shaggy would say. Any more young children, Riley over here? Number 15. 15. Oh, I love 15. Negative 3 fourths plus 2 thirds. By the way, knock on wood, the board is behaving incredibly nicely to me today. Somebody, you got some steps in there, you gotta get x by itself. The first thing you would always do, maybe what threw you for a loop is that a lot of times we usually put the x term first. This would be the same thing, and I don't know if this would make any difference for you. You can flip-flop those terms there, it doesn't really matter. But the first thing you do to get x by itself would be to do what? Brianna? Yeah, you want to get rid of the number that doesn't have the x first, you do the opposite. It is adding 3/4, so you subtract, it's subtracting 3/4, so you add 3/4. If you add 3/4 to this, that's the same as what? 9/12. So you end up with 10/12, and that equals 2 thirds x. You could reduce that if you want, leave it as it is, because you're going to, how am I going to get rid of that fraction in front, Jenna Dervis? Flip and multiply. Which is the same thing as dividing, by the way, that's why we just kind of skipped the whole talking dividing. This crosses off, multiply this by 3/2, go across canceling, end up with 5/4. You can leave it as 5/4 if you really don't feel like changing it into 1 1/4. That's what they let you astute mathematicians do. Maddie Rock?
Number 8.
Flipping back and forth between one and the other. Oh yeah, area of a rectangle is length times width, right? So you are going to multiply 2 times the square root of 2 times the square root of 2. Remember, radicals, which the square root of 2 is, are just like letters or variables. If you had 2x times x, what do you get? 2x squared. You don't multiply the 2 by anything, but the 2x's get multiplied. So that's the same thing here. The 2 stays, and then you take the square root of 2 times the square root of 2, which happens to be the square root of 4. And since the square root of 4 is 2, you end up with your final answer being 2 times 2, which is 4. Does that help? Mary? What did you get for an answer?
2.
Just cross out the square roots of 2. They just went away. And then away and flying somewhere. Let's go with green. Isabel?
10.
Number 10, she said. What's up this one? Tell me it's on the other sheet, isn't it? No. Really? Number 10's already solved. X is by itself, so all you need to do is this. This says these are numbers where x is greater than or equal to -3 and less than 2. So -3 you put down here. It's got an equal sign there, so it's colored in. 2 doesn't have an equal sign, so it's open, and it's an and inequality, so you color in what's between them. Which makes sense because if I asked you to give me a number that's greater than or equal to -3 and less than 2, you would give me these numbers. The number 1, the 0, -1, -2, those are numbers that fall between those two. If this would have said or, they go off in opposite directions and come together. Right now, over. Brianna, Massey.
Number 19.
Oh, yes. I was hoping for a number 19. -5 plus -4 times 3 minus -2 all over. Again, remembering that the fraction line is a grouping symbol, so you really have to simplify the whole top and then divide by -1. And the top gets split into these 3 parts. All separated by addition and subtraction signs, not in grouping symbols or not in parentheses. Can't do anything with -5, so I'm just going to rewrite them. What does a plus a minus 4 times 3 give me? Brianna? You look at how many negatives there are. If there's an odd number of negatives, the whole thing's negative. If there's an even number of negatives, it's positive. How many negatives are there? Just 1. So it's 4 times 3, 12, with 1 negative means it's -12. This one has 2 negatives, even number makes it a +2. Oh, listen to that horn. And then you just combine these. -5 and a -12. You have 5 negatives and 12 negatives gives you 17 negatives. -17 plus 2 is how many negatives? -15. And that's all over a -1, which is division. 2 negatives make it positive, so it ends up flipping back to a +15. Which I hope is the answer. Sometimes I get them right. Oh, sometimes I get them wrong. Is that thing still there? Problem number 18, the only way to do that is fraction-wise, because you can't take 33 1/3 and make it a decimal. Can't work with 0.3 repeater, it just don't happen, ain't working, not gonna be good. Quick top. Any questions in the back of the room there, Riley? 16. Children, 16. Love 16. Riley, what's the first thing you gotta do for 16? Distributive property. Get rid of these parentheses, and you do that by 5 times x is 5x. 5 times -2 is, Grace? -10. And that equals x plus 6. Now you've got issues because you have variables on 2 sides, numbers on 2 sides. What do I have to do? Jules Carlson, what am I gonna do here? I got a 5x here, an x over there, the whole worlds are colliding.
The X is fine to the south.
How do I get all the x's together? What am I gonna do to get them x's together? See, this little guy and this little guy want to come together because they're friends. They really want to party, do whatever, listen to Bon Jovi. Do the Reformation polka, if you will. What do I gotta do, Brianna? Yeah, you need to, it needs to cross this great divide of the equal sign, and to do that, you have to do the opposite. This is a plus x, so you subtract x, because x minus x is nothing, but I have to subtract that same x over here, which gives me 4 x's. Same thing with the numbers, they want to get together, do the opposite of subtracting 10 and add 10. If you add 10 to 16, you end up with, or 6, you get 16. And then you get it, as your last step with most equations, is to divide. Divide out the 4, divide out the 4, x is going to equal 4. Right now, Roth.
Number 11.
El numero el elevado. What two numbers are solutions to the equation? What gives you two solutions is this x squared, because two positives times themselves give you a positive and two negatives. Same thing is true really for this. This gets solved just like a normal equation. So Maddie Roth, the first thing I need to do to get x by itself is, subtract what? Always, you leave the thing with, the last thing you do is work with the term that has the x. You want to get rid of this first. Subtract 6, you get 75. Now 3x squared equals 75. Then you deal with the 3 in front of the x, which means you divide it out. Divide by 3, divide by 3. I end up with x squared equaling 25. And if you're trying to get x, now you have to do what? Take the square root of both sides. X equals the square root of 25, and that's what gives you two answers, because two things when multiplied together will give you 25. One is a positive 5 and one is a negative 5. No más? Carol Winkleman,
Number 12.
from way back in the room. Working my way down. Is it x plus 3 times x plus 3? What did you get, Carol?
X squared plus 3x.
Oh, boy. Huh. Interesting. Who knows the first word I'm going to say right here? Binomial times a binomial. A two-term thing times a two-term thing. You have to use, we use what little thing there? Grace?
Foil.
You should think FOIL. You multiply the first terms together, the outside terms together, the inside terms together, and the last terms together. These generally will can be combined. So the two first terms, I agree, x times x is x squared. The two outside terms, x times 3 is 3x. The two inside terms, again, x times 3, which is another 3x, for a grand total of 6x's. But don't forget, you still have the two last terms, a positive 3 times a positive 3, which is a positive 9. Raise your hand if you got that right. How many people got that right? Oh boy. How many people will get it right tomorrow? That would I put number 12. I would put FOIL, F-O-I now, if that helps you for number 12. Let's take a look, see where we're at here. I'll even let you have for 13-year-old list of whatever numbers it is. Maddie Raw.
Number 6.
Narrow surface of this right pyramid with the square base. Why does this seem familiar? Did we talk about this before? They gave you, you don't have to do a whole lot of work here because they gave you the slant height. Lateral surface area, note to self, is just the area of the sides, no bases. Lateral surface area is just the sides. And what are the shapes of the sides? They're all the same. They are Jenna-Dervis. Jenna-Dervis, what are these shapes? And how many are there? 4 triangles, all the same exact side because they all have 6 for their bases. And they all have 5 for their heights. And how do you find the area of triangles? Somebody may ask. Maddie Marco, the formula for area of a triangle is 1/2 base times height, which is 1/2 of 6 times 5, which is 3 times 5. Every one of these is 15. We don't put the bottom in because it's lateral surface area. 4 15s is 60 inches squared. Somebody else, before somebody falls asleep.
Number 1.
No, not number 1. Anything but number 1. Why don't I see number 1? What is the sale price of a 495 television on sale for 20% off? If you struggle with this, I would say the best way, at some point in your life, you probably won't do this, but you really probably at this point, if you struggle with these percentages things, is draw yourself. This is a discount problem, correct? You're getting money off. You've got a percent, you've got a real price. We start with the original percent. It originally is 100%. What is my discount? I get 20% off, so that's 20. So what is my final price going to be? What percent? 80%. If you get to take 20% off of something, you are actually going to pay 80% of its price. And then what are our numbers we stick in here? $495. Is that the original price or the sale price? That is the original. So that goes here. Do I want the sale price or do I want how much off you're getting? I want the sale price, so that's this one here. I don't really need this. So it ends up being 100 over 80 equals 495 over some number. Easiest way to do that? I would probably gauge you would probably what?
Multiply 80 times 40.
I don't know, well,
30 years.
maybe, I don't know. Is there, I guess it's 6 to 1/2 dozen of the other. I would probably reduce this. At least there you're only multiplying 8. And then quite possibly what? 10 eighths is, cuts down to 5/4, right? So now here, I don't know, who got this right? Well, which one, I'm just curious, what did you, Riley, what did you do? Did you reduce it or did you just multiply it?
I reduced it.
And then did you say, well, what times 5 gives you that and that, or did you multiply 4 times that and divide by that?
I said what 5 times what equals 495, right?
5 times what does give you that?
99.
99? Is your whatever thing, so you multiply 4 times 99? Which should be easy for you. 4 times 99 is the same thing as 4 times 100 minus 4, right? Because you're taking just 1 point. 396, is that what it is? 4 times 99, $396. Or if that bothers you, you could have left it as 100 over 80, multiplied 80 times that divided by 100. It's really easy to divide by 100, just move the decimal. So I'm going to guess if you multiply those out, you get 39600. The decimal back to places, you get 396. Your call. You're in 8th grade. Sometimes. Seems like it. How many people got that right? Josh Shelton,
How do you remember that?
lucky number 9. Yes, that's on the other page. Because it's the top of the other page. Upper left of the other page. Number 9. Oh yeah, Becky's thinking of two numbers. Their sum is 10. If you're thinking of two numbers and they're different, you have to kind of assign them a letter. And since we use x's and y's all the time, let's just do that. She's thinking of two numbers. One of them is x and the other is a y, just because that's our thing. So if it says their sum is 10, what am I going to do? If the sum of x and y is 10, what equation can I write? Brianna? X plus y is 10. Now, no, there's a bazillion infinite amount of answers to that. She could have picked 1 and 9, she could have picked 2 and 8, she could have picked 3 and 7, she could put negative 17 and positive 20. All of those would give you 10. And that's why if you were to graph this, which I believe, does it say to graph it? Then graph. Which means if you graph this, you get a line that goes on for absolutely ever. By the way, how would I graph this? What method? X, Y intercepts. Cover up the y, x is 10. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 10. You won't do this freehand because yours will never work out. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. The graph to this looks like this. A nice little. That's the graph of the answers of everything that'll give you this. Okay? Now, it goes on to tell you their difference is 6. Well, how do you write an equation with x and y that gives you a difference of 6? Brianna? X minus y is 6. So now I'm going to graph that. Cover up the y. X is 6. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Here's where most people, if they make a mistake on this, go wrong. Cover up the x. Y is not 6. Y has to be, since it's a negative y, Kate, it is negative 6. So here at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 is your other one. I do my little graph from there. And obviously my answer is right here, which is 8 over and 2 up. 8, comma 2. And notice, 8 plus 2 is 10. 8 minus 2 is 6. Fits both equations. It's where both lines cross. It's like a bullseye. More cowbell. I am going to look to see if constipation is at the red box when I go. Then I might wait for it to come out. Awkward silence. Somebody? Or do it mathematically. That's it? Really? Let it be known out there in the real world of sports that nobody had questions on. Let's see what we have left here. Number 13, number 14, number 17, number 18, number 3. I'm surprised they didn't say anything about number 3. Very surprised. Whoa, holy, look at the hands go through Northwood. Number 3, ladies and gentlemen, number 3. Number 3, really, kind of want to sketch this out. Priya walks quickly to school at 4 miles per hour. So here's your picture. Here's her house. We assume she leaves her house. Maybe it's her boyfriend's house. I don't know. Priya. Stop there. Maybe it's on the way. I don't know. And then she stops over at school. We know it's a school because it has a flag. She's going 4 miles per hour. and it takes her 15 minutes. What you really want to do is figure out how far is it from home to school. How far is it from home to school? How would you figure that out? First thing you gotta watch out for is this is in miles per hour, and she's talking in minutes. If you don't know what to do, make it easier and think of this. What if you're going 4 miles per hour and it takes you 2 hours to go? How far is it away? What did you do with that to get 8? You multiplied. Same thing here. You are going to multiply 4. The only problem is you can't multiply it by 15 because that's minutes and this is hours. So you want to change 15 into hours. 15 minutes is what part of an hour? 1/4. So 4 times 1/4. It is 1 mile from home to school. 1 mile. Now go on to the rest of the problem. She rides her bike to school at 10 miles per hour. Same place, except this one is 10 mph. How long will the trip take her? Okay, if you're going 10 miles an hour and you only go a mile, how long is that? Well, again, if you don't know what to do, make it easier, Brooklyn. Make it very, very much easier. If you went 10 miles per hour, let's do an easy number. Okay, and it took, wait, what does it say? If you ride your bike at 10 miles per hour, how long? And you went an hour. Let's say it was 10 miles. Let's say school was 10 miles. What would you do? How long would it take you at 10 miles to go 10 miles, at 10 miles an hour to go 10 miles? What did you do to those two to get that? You didn't multiply them, right? You divided them. So that's what you'll do here. 10 miles per hour divided by 1 mile is going to give you what? 10 hours? That can't be right. Wait, what is it? 6 minutes. Oh wait. Did I divide the wrong one by the wrong one? Yes, I did. Sorry. It's going to take you, sorry, it's backwards. You needed to put the 1 mile here. 1 mile at 10 miles per hour. Maybe I should have picked, let me pick a different one. How about this? At 10 miles per hour, we shouldn't have picked 10 because you can do it either way. If you went 20, if the school was 20 miles, how long would it take you? 10 miles an hour, 20 miles is what? 2 hours. So which one got divided by which one? You took 20 and divided it by 10. But the school's not 20 miles, it is 1 mile. You still divide by 10. It's 1/10 of an hour. But did we give our answer? What is 1/10 of an hour? 1/10 of 60 minutes is 6 minutes. So you probably, if you're thinking of the easy thing, you probably shouldn't use ones that give you exact ones because it'll mess up backwards and forwards. This one should have been flipped around. I told you I got a C note for one, didn't I? That's certainly good thinking. That's a tough one. Was there an easier way to do it, Isabel? Wait, did you say yeah? Well, and again, my way is not what? Was this inverse variation?
Yeah.
Oh, could we do it inverse variation wise?
Yes.
Why? I always do things the hard way. Alright, if it's inverse variation, if you went 4 miles in 15 minutes, maybe we should do that. You get 60. Right? But now you're going 10 miles an hour times what number gives you 60? Maybe you should write that down in your notes. Don't do it the way Mr. Hahn said. Use inverse variation. Will that make your life easier? Jot that down for 3. So all you gotta know is these two things times themselves will give you whatever this times is. Wow, that made it extremely complicated, didn't it? Keith, why didn't you stop me? Why didn't you say this? That's a long, hard way to do it. Notice I did get the right answer though. Jaden? 17. Oh, I love 17. Six x negative 1 y 2 x 3 over 2xy. Somebody gonna walk me through this before I show you the incredibly hard way to do this first? What would you do first? I'd do the numbers first. Do the numbers cross out a little bit? Yes. What happens? 2 goes into 6 3 times. Now, what do we do with the letters? Because, by the way, there are multiple ways to do this one. Somebody who got it right. Elijah, what did you do? Okay, we don't deal well with negatives, so we want to make this x to the negative 1 x to the positive 1, and you do that simply by moving it to the bottom. Now it's gone up here. It's a positive 1, but we don't put positive 1s down there. Then, Elijah? Cross 2 off. Well, and you could think about it that way. Here you have y squared, so that's 2 y's, right? And one of them's going to cross off with the 1y here. Here you have 3 x's. And 1x can cross off with this 1x, and a second x with that second x. So what are you left with? Everything on the bottom crossed off. On top, you're left with 1x and 1y. And the 3 that's up there. Ooh, it's gonna be a tough one. Still have 7 minutes. Delaney?
Number 18.
Number 18. I already made reference to number 18, children. What did I say? You can't do this in decimal form, you have to do it in fraction form. And you should automatically know that 1/3 is the same as the or 33 1/3% is 1/3. 2/3 is 2/3. And 27 over 100 is, or 27 hundredths is 27 over 100. That is probably how I would end up doing this thing. And the beauty of that is what? Somebody? I can see it right now. 3 cross cancels with 27. 3 goes into 3 once, into 27 how many times? 9. Oh look, 3 goes into 9. 3 goes into 3 once, into 9 3 times. And 2 goes into 100 50 times. You know, 3 times 1 times 1, which is 3, over 50. What would make this probably better is this. Is that not the one? Where's the guy talking on the microphone? One more down.
And press the
I don't know where that one was. Did I turn that on?
Well done.
It's-
This one?
Yes.
That one is?
Yes.
Liars, all of you. Other ones on the big screen? I'm still laughing about that inverse variation one. Why didn't somebody say use inverse variation? Whatever the hell's going on. I think that's it. Is that it? That is a, what are the odds this thing's still on?